Good Neighbor of the Year. Sean Evans, Old Town Moore and Beyond. It is an understatement to say that Moore is no stranger to tornadoes. On the evening of May 20th, 2013, Sean Evans looked out on his beloved neighborhood of Old Town Moore, where he serves as a neighborhood representative on the Neighborhood Association, and saw huge piles of debris. As they were on the outer path of the tornado, none of his neighbors' homes were destroyed, but the rest of his beloved community was in immediate need. Sean set out to contact his friends by using social media to round up some volunteers. He used the hashtag #ServeMoore for the first time, and little did he know he was creating history. That this is when the hugely successful nonprofit Serve More was actually created. Serve More would become the central clearinghouse for the thousands of unaffiliated volunteers that poured into Moore in the aftermath of the largest tornado this country has ever seen. Sean immediately knew that this was going to take an amount of collaboration unlike anything Oklahoma had ever seen. It also took someone with a vision to see how this could all come together in just a matter of days. Sean and Serve More have done many things for Central Oklahoma. He even started a community garden near the Plaza Courts Elementary School with the promise of growing a pumpkin for every child at the school. When it was apparent that his pumpkin growing skills were not as in tune as his community organizing skills, he and his buddy drove to Hinton, Oklahoma, to a friendly farmer who sold him the pumpkins he needed. And the children were none the wiser. Then on March 25th, 2015, another tornado hit the Moore and South Oklahoma City area, and this time it directly hit the Frontline Church on Southeast 44th and I-35. Sean is the executive pastor of this church and is intimately familiar with the neighborhood surrounding this last round of devastation. He used all of the skills he honed in May 2013 to help out in March 2015. Sean is the first one to tell you he could not have done this alone, nor did he. However, he was the one that had the original vision and a servant's heart that has led to thousands of people being matched with hundreds of Oklahomans who needed help. Sean epitomizes the Oklahoma standard. Larry Bross, City Care Inc. in West Lawn Gardens neighborhood. Larry Bross can be described as larger than life. Even as an OU football player, he showed skill and passion. In 1996, he turned that passion toward a program called City Care's Whiz Kids, and he launched this inner city reading and tutoring program in what was the poorest neighborhood in Oklahoma City, Mulligan Flats. Today, this same area is known as West Lawn Gardens. While working with Whiz Kids, Larry quickly became acquainted with the neighborhood located around Reno and Villa. Its dirt streets, homes in disrepair, and stray dogs were somewhat overshadowed by the beautiful huge trees, the kindness and tenacity of the residents, and a deep connection they all felt toward their neighborhood. Larry felt this connection after having worked with the children at the school. He wanted City Care to be entrenched in this neighborhood in a huge way, and in 2013, he opened Purging Center, a first-class facility for higher functioning homeless in the West Lawn Gardens neighborhood. Since City Care arrived in West Lawn Gardens, education at Mark Twain has become a priority for the families who feed into that school. City Care has taken over the care of the city-owned Crystal Lake located near the Southwest 15th and Portland area, and has created summer camps for the kids in the neighborhood with canoeing, archery, and much more. They have held 20 years worth of Christmas parties and end of school year celebrations. They provide security for the entire neighborhood through a police-sanctioned crime patrol program. They help rehab their city-owned park and help host cookouts for the entire neighborhood every year. They have a newly constructed and beautifully painted bus stop for the working poor that live in the neighborhood. Pershing Center has a phenomenal community garden where residents can help, learn gardening tips, and eat fresh vegetables. Also, they host a yearly trunk or treat at Halloween that serves over 2,000 children annually. Several of the formerly homeless residents who lived at Pershing Center have returned to serve as neighborhood association officers and volunteers. Most of all, Larry noticed that the residents who lived at Pershing Center did not want to leave the neighborhood when their year of transitional living was up. They had grown to love this little tight-knit community, so Larry set out to build duplexes and single-family homes on the dilapidated lots inside of Westlawn Gardens to house the successful graduates of the Pershing Center. These beautifully built and landscaped homes dot the neighborhood and have even inspired other builders to build new homes in the same formerly forgotten area. Larry has done so much for Oklahoma City, including serving a daily homeless breakfast for over 20 years, a deep connection and commitment to the work of the Homeless Alliance, and a wonderful wife and partner, Maisie Bross, who now heads up the Whiz Kids operation, and a host of admirers and volunteers that help him. Larry, Oklahoma City is a better place because of you and your vision. George Cofa, Culbertson's East Highland neighborhood. Mr. George Cofa, a Liberian national, moved to Culbertson's East Highland in 1981. Located near Northeast 16th and Martin Luther King, he wanted to raise his family in an area of diversity. He purchased one of the crumbling homes that unfortunately were common to the area and hatched his vision. George is a highly skilled boiler operator, and this work took him to Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma City Public Schools, and his favorite, the Oklahoma City Police Department. In fact, he was working there during the Murrah bombing and was awarded a coveted certificate for his tremendous help in cleaning up after the national tragedy. Mr. Cofa went to a local nonprofit that gave homeowners grants to fix up their older homes. The inspector took one look at Mr. Cofa's home and not only denied him the money, but told him he should move, that the house would never be livable. His wife, 3 daughters, and 1 son all hoped he would listen, but this just made Mr. Cofa more determined than ever. The entire neighborhood took notice, usually through stares and shakes of the head. But 8 years later, working on weekends, evenings, and holidays, he now had the most beautiful home on the block. In fact, the whole neighborhood. One day, while in Walmart, a woman he did not recognize stopped him and said, "Thank you. We all thought you were a fool to put money into that eyesore of a house, but I am sorry we ever doubted you. You have brought life back into our neighborhood." When the house was finished, he called the nonprofit that originally denied his application, and luckily, the original inspector was still working there. Mr. Cofa invited the inspector to come and view the finished product. When he saw the completed house, he could not believe the quality of workmanship, the attention to detail, and the life Mr. Cofa was able to bring to this wonderful old home. In fact, he went back to his agency and convinced them to give him the grant that was originally denied several years ago. Mr. Cofa took that money and invested in other properties in his neighborhood, Culbertson's East Highland. Today, he owns 13 previously abandoned homes and has turned them into shining examples of what can be. Mr. Cofa is now the neighborhood president, and he proudly walks the neighborhood to share his vision of home rehabilitation and helping people to understand the value of keeping up their properties. As a volunteer and a homeowner, Mr. Cofa has helped to transform a once neglected community to an up-and-coming inner-city star. Mr. Cofa uses his spare time to make his visions come true. A diverse neighborhood with great homes where he could raise his family with pride. And no one is doubting him now. And the winner is